It's pretty much a given at this point that Aventurine clearly stands at the top of the Jujutsu Kaisen sorcerer world, given he is one of the very few who can use a domain expansion. One so strong that Acheron herself had to counteract it with her own powers. But how was he able to access such an immensely powerful technique? Is he truly the honored one throughout all of heaven and earth? Well, actually, it's more because he has what's referred to as a cornerstone, a gem that grants him an immense amount of power. But what exactly is this cornerstone? Who gave it to him, and how does it even work? That's what we'll be discussing in this video. Before we tackle this topic though, if you're interested in more Honkai Star Rail content, do consider subscribing to the channel. This video will be split into functionally two parts. The first will mostly cover everything we know about the cornerstones as shown in game and throughout the lore so far. The second is more of a theory portion where I speculate on topics related to the cornerstone and their wielders. Also, while the content covered here isn't necessarily spoilery in nature, some of the footage I'll be using can be considered as such, especially for the 2.1 Trailblazer main story. So if you don't want to unintentionally spoil yourself, consider this your spoiler warning. The IPC are made up of many different departments, and the one that has been the most prominent in the story so far has been the Strategic Investment Department. Within this department, there are a group of 10 specialists who report directly to its department head, Diamond, who are also known as the 10 Stonehearts. Officially though, they are referred to as the Non-Performing Asset Liquidation Specialist Group, and characters like Aventurine, Topaz, and Jade are all known members. Each of them are extremely proficient in what they do and are handpicked and promoted by Diamond himself. And each time he does this, he gives them an object that acts as an identifier of their position, the cornerstone. To the uninitiated, the cornerstones are nothing more than just symbols of the 10 Stonehearts, a visual representation of their office and authority. In truth though, they are far more than that. Diamond is one of the very few confirmed emanators of preservation. I personally think that most of the department heads and perhaps even the board members of the IPC are emanators, but as far as the lore has revealed, Diamond is the only one confirmed so far. Now, why the cornerstones are considered to be so important is because they are said to contain the power of preservation itself. It's unclear whether the cornerstones contain Diamond's powers alone or if they draw powers straight from qlipoth and the path itself. But regardless, the point is that they each contain an immense amount of power. By merely accessing its stored energies, Aventurine was able to push back all the nameless, Wealth and Himeko included, and even Acheron just by himself. It's very likely that the powers contained are near or at the level of an emanator, given Acheron could only counter it when she accessed her own abilities. That said, Acheron immediately overpowered Aventurine, so I would imagine the cornerstones only hold a sliver of an emanator's power and not all of it in its entirety. In order to access the powers stored within, wielders of the cornerstones are required to physically break them. This, however, has to be done with the will and intention to utilize its power, otherwise breaking it does nothing. Aventurine, for example, broke his cornerstone into smaller pieces to trick Sunday, but didn't receive a power-up when he initially did so. Only when he consciously chose to use its power and then physically breaking it did he gain its stored energies. It's sort of like One for All from My Hero Academia, in that the powers can't be transferred to someone else unless the original wielder themselves will it to be so. On top of that, of the two wielders we've seen, namely Jade and Aventurine, there seems to be a line one needs to speak in order to activate the cornerstone. The line of words Aventurine uses and the one Jade uses seem to be different, though they both end with the line, "All for the Ember Lord." Given we've only seen 2 instances of this happening, perhaps it's not entirely required and largely depends on individual users. So functionally, the cornerstones are not only a symbol of the 10 Stonehearts' positions and authority, but also a receptacle for an immense amount of power. Now, given what we know about these objects, there's actually quite a few details that we don't know, and this is where the video gets a bit more theoretical in nature. Firstly, we don't really know how they are created or manufactured. If they are indeed portions of Diamond's own emanator powers, we haven't really seen anything like this up till this point, where powers are able to be shared. Emanators are granted powers directly from their eons and likely are able to use them as they see fit. But there should be some rules applying to them, such as only using them in line with each path's philosophy or ideology. So this distribution of power might be something specific to the preservation path itself, i.e. it's preserving the powers of an emanator or qlipoth just in another form. Alternatively, it could be an ability unique to Diamond, and him specifically choosing these 10 people was a choice that goes beyond their mere business prowess, and perhaps related to some condition he needs to fulfill. The point is the ability to apportion out and grant such powers is unprecedented, and my guess is it's unique to Diamond or Preservation, otherwise we'd have seen more of it throughout the game. If let's say for a second that it's a distribution of Diamond's own emanator powers, another curious question would be if, by doing so, would he diminish his own abilities? My personal guess is that it does, and each time its user releases its power, it eventually goes back to Diamond himself after it's used up. Because if Diamond had no limits to how many cornerstones he can create, then the IPC might just end up becoming far more powerful with an army of Pathstriders, all with emanator-like powers. Finally, we aren't entirely sure of whether each cornerstone is a one-use tool or that they can be reformed or even recharged. Since you have to functionally break it open like a Cadbury egg to get the sweet path powers inside, would the power dissipate after use? The cornerstones are said to be objects that the 10 Stonehearts value above their very lives, but that seems kinda odd if it's just a one-time use thing. If it were me, I'd probably end up keeping it and never using it, like the many potions and elixirs I saved up in RPGs, because you never know when you might need them, right? This again may relate back to why Diamond chose these 10 people specifically. Perhaps they are just the type to use any resource available to them to gain an advantage or to secure a victory. Aventurine certainly fits that idea, so maybe it's that. Now the cornerstones may not be entirely interesting all their own, given they are just receptacles of power, but if for a moment we consider these to be slivers of the emanator's own powers, I think you can kinda imagine how strong Diamond themselves would actually be. As I mentioned, Aventurine was able to sufficiently pressure Acheron using his own cornerstone, and it's only a portion of an emanator's powers, presumably. So Diamond must be far more powerful. As the story evolves, we are getting closer to meeting the bigger players of the universe, powerhouses who sit on the higher echelons of strength in Star Rail. If what Aventurine could do is even a taste of what Diamond can achieve, emanators must be truly fearsome. I mean, just look at Acheron. But that's about all we know about these cornerstones at this moment, which brings this video to an end. I do wonder if we will see more of what these objects are capable of, given Topaz is still on Penacony, and Jade seems like she will be getting involved as well. Perhaps when we see Topaz unleash her own personal cornerstone, we can see an overly buffed Nambi balloon to the size of a giant and just obliterating the family in a single attack. 5-star Nambi solo summon confirmed. Anyways, if you have any interesting ideas or insights about the nature of the cornerstones, share your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. If you enjoyed watching the video, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as usual, have a nice day.